You're going to learn in this video how to shift from chasing every health trend with not great results or following every short-lived whim that feels good in the moment but then feels terrible afterwards to deeply trusting your intuition and allowing that to transform your health and well-being long-term. Welcome to my channel where we dive deep into elevating our well-being from a mind, body, soul perspective. There are so many choices that we can make when it comes to our bodies. Every kind of diet, vegan, keto, carnivore, every kind of health practice imaginable, from supplement stacking to fasting to cold plunge and sauna. And it can seem like every one of these practices has a strong proponent behind them who says that everything changed when they did this one thing. But the truth is that there is no one prescription that is going to fit you exactly the way that it does somebody else. And so then what do? Well, we have to trust our intuitive sense of what is right for our unique bodies, but maybe not in the way that you think. There's actually a very clear methodology to getting in touch with our intuition in this way. Sometimes what we think is our intuition may actually just be a short-lived whim. It can be really easy when it comes to our health to mistake a whim for an intuitive nudge. For example, we might do something for our bodies that feels good in the moment, like a craving, but then afterwards we feel worse than we did before. Or maybe we feel good for a little while, but then over time our health starts to decline. And so we want to use what I call the truth trifecta. If a health practice is really true and right for you, it should check out on 3 fronts. Number 1 is exactly what we've been talking about. You want to do what feels right intuitively, but there is a specific way to access your intuition. And that is to have a conversation with your body about what it needs and then be prepared to listen. And I know that might sound a little strange at first to have an actual conversation with your body, but here's what I mean. You spend time in silence with yourself. And then there will be this clear voice that comes up that just has an authority to it that is undeniable. And this is the kind of guidance that you can access when you spend time in meditation. I have a free embodiment meditation that you can access at the link in the description box below that can help get you started on this. Number 2 is that your intuitive sense should actually line up with sound scientific knowledge. And this is something that sometimes surprises people because there's this common perception that intuition is something that is quote unquote woo-woo or abstract in some way and at odds with science. But actually the two complement each other very well. When something is really true for you, you will be drawn to the knowledge in the external world that confirms your internal sense. Everything should line up. So then once you've taken the first 2 steps, then it's time to try things out, to see how this health practice resonates with your own personal experience. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of trial and error, as long as we're doing it in an aligned way where we've taken those first 2 steps of consulting our intuition and seeing how it lines up with science that we trust. So then, in this next step, we're going to develop a keen awareness of our body and how it responds to what we're doing to it. Maybe even have a journaling practice. Journal daily about how your body is responding. You'll also want to check in on some basic labs to see if your personal data is matching up with what you are observing about yourself and your body. And the more you check in on these 2 points, the easier it will be to pivot if things don't go the way that you initially thought. And there's no need to get it right immediately. In fact, a little bit of tweaking here and there will help you to learn a lot about your body and to form a deeper relationship with it. So I'll give you an example from my own experience where I was missing steps 2 and 3 from the truth trifecta. And I thought I had number 1 down of trusting my intuition, but it wasn't quite there. So I had a phase where I was doing a lot of juicing, I was eating a lot of whole food carbs, but I was really under eating protein and I was also missing a lot of key nutrients, but I didn't know it at the time. I felt better than I had in the past because I was eating whole foods and not processed foods, but I thought my intuition was all that I needed to trust, and I didn't need to understand the science behind what I was doing, and I didn't need to understand logically how my body was responding from a biochemical perspective to what I was doing to it. And I felt great for a little bit of time, but then over a couple of years, things started to go downhill. My physical endurance and my mental health specifically started to suffer. I struggled to do some of the physical activities that I loved, like long runs and hikes, And I also began to feel really ungrounded and experience a lot of anxiety and even obsessive thoughts that just seemed to come out of nowhere. And I realized that I had not actually been following my intuition. Subconsciously, I had just been listening to other people's opinions, things that I had picked up here and there. And that gave me the opportunity to discover my true intuition. I changed my meditation practice. I had been doing transcendental meditation at the time, which is really great for spiritual development, and I still practice it, but I needed a more grounded approach to bring me back into my body. And so I started to practice body awareness. I became aware of how my body was moving in space and also the internal sensations of my body. And through that, I began to have a conversation with it, to ask it what it needed, and I began to receive answers from that. It was this very organic process that was a beautiful experience. And from this practice, I learned that I needed to support my body with more of the building blocks from a diet, so protein. And I was guided to specific ways grounded in science on how to get the most bioavailable protein and nutrients. And this guidance was based on science that made sense logically based on the mechanism of action of how the body works. And I did have to do a little bit of brushing up and studying on this. And then B is that it had good studies to support it. It had multiple randomized control trials with large diverse samples. And for those who are not familiar with what a randomized control trial or an RCT is, it's a study that has a control group that does not receive the intervention that's being tested, so that confounding variables will not influence the outcome of the intervention. And there are many studies, especially in the nutrition space, that don't utilize this method. There are what are called epidemiological studies that are based on just surveys or based on following people around, where there's a lot of confounding variables, and we can't actually draw a conclusion from those types of studies, because we could have things like healthy user bias, where the intervention that's being tested is testing on otherwise healthy people. And so we don't know if that intervention is what is causing them to experience health or if it's something else that they're doing. So I followed steps 1 and 2. I trusted my true intuition, and then I was led to science based on sound methodology that confirmed my internal sense. So now it was time to move on to step 3, which was seeing how my body would respond to the changes that I wanted to make. And in fact, I felt better than I ever had, even as a kid. And it was almost like that Mario Kart game where you land on a gem and it supercharges your avatar. That was exactly how I felt when they made these changes. And my labs confirmed this as well. Thankfully, I had gotten some labs done before I made these changes, so I was able to compare. And my blood sugar levels had gone down considerably. And all of my other markers of metabolic health and inflammation looked great, as did my nutrient levels. And so my intuition, the science, and my own personal experience all lined up. And at the same time, though, I'm not overly attached to following this exact diet that I'm pursuing right now. I am open to making tweaks as things in my life change, as different stressors arise or go away, as my activity levels potentially change, and even as I go through different life phases, especially as a woman. So now the invitation is for you to try out this 3-step process and to notice, does your intuitive sense of what your body needs line up with science that's based on sound methodology, as well as your own personal lived experience as you develop body awareness and see how your body responds when you try out the changes that you want to try? And if not, then it might be time to probe a little deeper and to see if short-term whims or cravings or maybe other people's opinions might be leading you away from your truth. And then you can keep coming back to this 3-step process to refine and realign with your true inner knowing. Feel free to like this video if you found it valuable, and to subscribe if you want to learn about more ways to feel amazing in your mind and your body.